Join us on a journey beyond reason, where we have chats and discussions about the in-between and far beyond.
Is there life after death? Well, a near-death experience can help anyone know that, yes, there is absolutely life after death. Or is there death? I don't know. I don't think there is death. Do you think there's death?
It's a regular part of life. It's also birth.
Is it death or is it death of the flesh? Because the spirit doesn't ever die.
Correct.
Right?
It changes form. So in death, change. It's a form of change.
A metamorphosis, like a butterfly.
Yeah. And the only thing constant, I believe there's a law in physics that says the only thing that is constant is change. If I remember from one of those classes back in the day that I had. But
well, I'll tell you what, I totally agree with that after 62 years.
woo!
That change is constant and it happens in whiplash speed, especially lately, right? If you agree, go ahead and leave one of your experiences in the comments. Speaking of experiences, I have a near-death experience. Do you have a near-death experience?
Yeah, I could say that. Yeah, I did. I could say that. I had different kinds.
Because I'd like to know. Because you've never said that to me before.
I had different kinds of near-death experiences. That it's not the typical when you read about those books where they talk about how they died and they came back to life. Well, if I died, I don't know if I died or not, but I did experience a form of death. And I can talk about that.
Yeah.
But
tell me your experience and then I'll tell you mine.
Well, being an astrologer, I encounter that topic all the time. And the 8th house in astrology is the house of death, but it's also the house of sudden changes. It's the house of the mystical, the hidden, the spirituality, psychology. It's Scorpio.
Did you almost say otherworldly?
Yeah.
Because that 12th house fitting for our
It is otherworldly. Podcast. So yeah, we're actually by doing this podcast, we're living in the 8th house. And I would also say the 4th house and the 12th house. Those are the spiritual houses.
Wish I had 3 houses. How many houses?
Well, maybe you will. Just add a yet to that. So death is a loaded topic for me. I've experienced the death of loved ones. And as a result of those challenges, everybody gets to experience death in many different ways. We have our animals we love that pass over. We have family members, friends, spouses, mates. But death can also be a change in our life. The death of a relationship is a divorce, so that's a form of death. You go through grieving process with that.
Hair falling out.
I mean,
and coming back.
Illnesses, and the 8th house is serious illnesses. So, and for me, experiencing my own personal facing of my death, in a way, I already had a death in this life. I had a psychic change. I had a major drinking problem, drug problem as a teenager. And then through the 20s, I struggled with it and tried to quit drinking through AA. And I finally succeeded at age 32.
And that totally sounds like a metamorphosis or a rebirth.
I had it. And guess what the transit was in my chart when I finally got sober and stayed sober. It was Pluto. The planet of death was going through my 8th house of death. So I was on a course of dying a day at a time, slowly through poisoning myself. And then Pluto came in and so did Saturn. Saturn was actually in my house of gains. And all of a sudden I didn't want to live like that anymore. And I finally ended it. So I had a psychic change and all of a sudden I wanted a new life. So I put it basically with the help of my higher power, I put an end to that old life of drinking. I wasn't really drugging anymore, but I was drinking mostly. I put an end to that with the help of my spiritual belief system and the help of a higher power that I believe in and that I call today creator, God, many things, universe. And by putting an end to that old life, I embraced a new life and said, I'm going to get rid of this old stuff that I'm addicted to and habitual with. And I'm going to do different now. And I did. And as a result, I've changed over time and I've morphed and completely different from 30 years ago. That was 30 years ago. They're almost 31 years ago.
And it did some damage to the body that is now
amazing. And
healed.
Right. Doesn't our body change every 7 years?
Yeah,
the cells.
We replace all of our cells every 7 years, according to someone. And so we do, like, we slough off our cells. We lose skin cells and hair cells. That's to me not near-death experience, but metamorphosis.
Well, my NDE, I like to say, is that I had a psychic change and I died. The old me died and I became new and was reborn. In fact, in 2012, because I have a lot of powerful dreams, I've had lots of powerful dreams through my life. Like I dreamt about the death of my father. I saw his death in a dream and I was very concerned. I was in another country. And so I made a point to call him as often as I could and talk to him. And I think it was about 4 to 6 months after I had that dream, he passed away. And it happened exactly the way it was in my dream. So I think
that was a prophetic dream.
It was a prophetic dream and about death. And I think it was because I could handle it. And it was something that the divine wanted me to see and know, because I could handle it. And it was a prep. It was a preparation for something getting ready to happen. Now I have astrology to do that. I can read a chart and do predictions and see, what's going to happen. And we can attempt to predict death in astrology. I've had clients who asked me to look and see if I could predict their death or the death of a loved one. I don't like to do that. And I always tell them, well, Vedic astrologers have a tendency to be 70% accurate if they're really good and highly experienced.
Can you see near deaths in the chart?
Yes. I can predict, and usually the way that I address it is I say, this person is at risk. Take care, be careful.
I wonder if you looked at my chart on the day I had mine.
Yes.
If you would see the near-death experience.
I would. It probably has something to do with one of your, either your 4th, your 8th, or your 12th house. And we can see people, and maybe even your 7th house, but we can predict death through looking at certain houses and planets that transit through them, and also the Mahadasha Bhukti, which is a planet that's been activated over a certain period of time. So if
any of you have ever had a near-death experience, it might be interesting to get your chart done so that you can see if it showed up on your chart. And
I like to do that. Yeah. And it's a good way to rectify a chart, if you don't know your date of birth. Good.
Awesome. I think we're supposed to do that for mine.
Yeah, let's do. And so there's some people that don't know what time they were born, so you can't be as accurate with that chart. Mm-hmm. You can read from the moon, no problem, pretty accurately. But you can rectify a chart by looking at significant events, births, deaths, marriages, to get the accurate timing. It's an amazing process.
Sounds like a lot of work to me.
It is. It is.
I prefer going to sleep, getting a dream, and then the next day.
That's the easy way. But, for me now, after experiencing a life, ever since my 20s, my 20s was when I experienced the first death of my first husband. I was 24. Yeah, I was 24.
That's young to go through.
And he was 27, and he was going through a Saturn return, and some people don't just survive that. So it's a very challenging time when you're aged 27 to 30, 31. And anyway, that was the first experience. And I was in shock for about a long time, like 3 months. I don't think I ate for 3 months. It was very shocking. So that catapulted me into reality, and that death is real, and that death is a change. And so we just get a new body. And then, of course, all the different faiths out there address death and talk about it. And to me, I just say there is no death. It's only change, and it's a form of rebirth. And in 2012, I had a dream that I was being born. in 2012. So that was like 13 years ago. So in a way, I had a rebirth that year as well. My life changed that year too. So I just see it as a way of being born. And you know how people die, you'll read about people who've had NDEs and they see a light at the end of a tunnel, right? What was profound was I heard someone say once that when we're born, we see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh,
right. So
as you're exiting your mother,
right?
Sounds like a little joke, but it's
and when you exit this life, people see the light at the end of it.
And
so
when conception happens, there's a spark in the nuclei.
Oh, and like an explosion,
a light,
a spark of life.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? It's just so incredible. So, you know, and I've had death on the mind a lot recently because I've got friends that are losing friends and family. And, you know, I know people who are struggling with illnesses or their loved ones are struggling with illnesses. And so it's like a given. We all get to go through that. And when my father passed away, I had to go to a wedding. I was married at the time, and his sister was getting married, and I just felt my dad with me the whole time, and I wasn't allowed to grieve or cry because it's part of the culture where you don't cry at a wedding; it's bad luck. So I had to like pretend to be happy. Boy, that's tough. And later on, I realized that because I can hear and experience people on the other side now as a medium as well. That's developed over time when I experience the passing of my loved ones. And I'm like, Dad, that would be so much like you to put me in a position where I can't cry because you left this earth.
Dad's
isn't that just typical of you? Thanks a lot, Dad. That was hard, you know? And so that would be just like him to do something like that because this life was really hard for him. And I knew he was a lot happier not being in that body anymore. So it would be just like him to put me in a position of a celebration.
Yeah.
Instead of a mourning. So I like to look at death as a form of celebration. And when you look at, say, the Irish, right, they have a celebration at wakes. And I love that, you know, and I have Irish in me. My dad was part Irish as well. And so it would be just like him to do something like that, put me in that position.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I like to look at death as a form of rebirth, and we all get to experience that. And, you know, I just, a good friend of mine just lost her friend, and I know she's happier for it. And you've experienced her after having passed, being a medium.
And now to the topic of near-death experiences, which is when you're actually dying and then you come back.
You flatline and then you come back.
Well, I had a near-death experience, but I didn't flatline. At least I have no idea, really. But I was laying on the bed with my son, and my mother was there. And he was 2 years old and all muscle, and jumping up and down really energetically and excited and laughing. And his head went up under my nose and pushed my nose up into my cranium. And then I had fluid coming out of my ears.
Oh, yeah. You can die from that.
But I left my body, and I was in perfect temperature, perfect light, not too bright, not too dim. Just, this is the best way I can explain it, is an immediate immersion into unconditional love. It was the most beautiful moment of my life, even though I think that I was actually on my way out. And as I was in this moment, I was unaware of anything of my current life, of my mother, my child, my anything. And I was all of a sudden approached by an ancestor, which I thought it was my mother calling my name, but she said she didn't say anything while I was out because I used to pass out a lot, having 10 food allergies. Probably had a lot of near-death experiences actually during my life because of the food allergies, and I'm getting a yes for that. But my impression was that it was my mother, and she said, you can't You can't stay. You have to go back because your son can't know he killed his mother. So then I come out of it, and my mom was there, and there was just all this fluid out on the sides of my face. And I was like, you called me back. And she said, I didn't say anything. I just thought you fainted because you're always passing out. So I went to the doctor, and he confirmed that it was cerebral fluid. And he said, write on the calendar the date. And in 2 years, if you haven't come down with spinal meningitis, then you should survive this near death, or you should be okay. So for 2 years, I lived with that fear of possibly getting sick. And I don't know if I ever even told my son this, or if he knows that this occurred, because I just didn't want him to know that he hurt me to that extent. It was a playful, fun moment. But what it did for me was it removed all fear of death. I had no pain. Well, you have no body. The pain just goes. And it was an instant, so I didn't have any time to be afraid, which I think would definitely be a factor in preparing to die, since this is more about death than near-death experience. I'll go ahead and go into my father's passing, which was my most recent loss. And he had a lot of suffering that he did before he passed. And the night before, he showed me his wound and was celebrating and ecstatically happy that he had this wound, because his whole life he wanted to suffer for the souls in purgatory. As he was Catholic, he was also in a ministry, he went into the monastery when he was younger. So he always wanted to be of service. My mom would not let him suffer. She said, it's not up to you. We're a couple, we're married, and a priest confirmed that you're not supposed to take on a life of suffering without permission from your spouse. I don't know where that's coming from. So mom won, and mom went first into the afterlife. And my father had a lot of suffering, but in the end died joyfully, but also refused to let me help him by bathing him. I was on my way to him, and this is something that everyone needs to know, is that you can choose the time that you're going to pass. You can choose the date. I worked in a convalescent hospital, and people used to say, I'm going to die on this day at that time. And they would. It was quite something to experience and to witness. And so I let my dad know I was on my way with a bunch of food for him, and I was going to help dress his wounds. And I got there, and he had passed just a few minutes before. Death is not a topic a lot of people want to talk about, but as a psychic medium and a Vedic astrologer, and we do readings, death is pretty much, we live in the soup. For me, it isn't a sad thing. It is just a normal part of life. You feel the same way?
It's a regular part of life. And I've had many elders tell me that it's a circle of life.
So when I arrived at my dad's house with food and everything, I opened the door, I went in, and he was asleep in his favorite chair. But he wasn't. He had already crossed over, and 1/4 of the room was mist, just like the same mist that I was seeing in the house where I'm living now. A few episodes back, I talked about it. And then I went back and looked at the other episode before, and there was a mist over my eyes. If you guys want to check it out, I'll put the link to that video in the description of this video, or in where we put our comments, so that you can look and see how on my face was out of focus while yours was in focus, and I couldn't see the screen. So that happened in the house when my dad had passed away. And it felt as if it was all of my ancestors all there in the room. And I'm getting a yes. So it's the veil opening up. And then one thing I did for my dad was, he was brilliant, an inventor as well. Invented the in-the-ear hearing aid, or is co-inventor of the in-the-ear hearing aid, and electronic stethoscope and building an airplane in our garage. Just brilliant. But he could not, for the life of him, figure out how to hook up sound to the TV and VCRs and stuff like that. And so I went to his house and set it up, and then he moved furniture around or something, and then I had to do it again and then again. And I wrote little notes and made it so he could easily navigate through his entertainment. So while I walked in there, and these are not old TVs, this is the new flat screen TVs. They don't just all flicker. And so he was flickering the TV when I was in there, like a little message to me that
like, I'm here.
Yeah, that I'm here with you, and that he knew that the TV part would definitely resonate with me. But in that moment, I was alone. My sisters were on a trip. They were together in Canada at the time, and they said it was supposed to be you to find him. So, well,
I think he wanted it that way, right?
He did, yeah. But he didn't want me to give him a bath. So that's what he said. He goes, there was no way I was going to let my daughter bathe me. And
I think I'll exit right now.
So you were talking about your dad
yeah,
being a smart aleck.
right.
Dying when you're at a wedding. So my dad died when my sisters were having fun together, and they were so far away that they wouldn't have to be there for the discovery of his body. And knowing that I had already dressed people's bodies working in the convalescent hospital, that I had the experience, he knew that I would be able to handle it. And so it was just that same feeling that I had in a near-death experience, that same temperature in the room, the misty feeling of, it's like a perfect feeling on your skin. So if you have someone die and you're in the room and you feel kind of like you're in a refrigerator, but not, kind of like you're in an oven, but not, almost like there is no nerves on your skin at all, or they're there and they're delighted, they're happy. Being in a room where someone has passed with and they're still present in the room is a beautiful, loving, incredible feeling. So as a medium, I don't know what it would feel like to not be.
Well, I felt my father when he passed. When I saw my first husband pass, we were at the funeral and he was in the coffin, and I could have sworn I saw his spirit body lift up out of the coffin. It was the weirdest thing. And then sometimes not too long after that on the streets, I thought I saw him. I would see a person that looked just like him walking.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine that. When my dad, during my dad's funeral, the priest was speaking on, and my dad was on the altar, like teasing him, being a smart aleck and messing with the priest as he was trying to talk about my dad. So I was trying not to laugh.
Was your dad
while
a joker?
I was in the funeral?
Was your dad a joker?
Oh, he was, yes. Right up to the end. And you never know if he was serious or if he was teasing as we were children. I remember when we were young and we went roller skating, a friend of mine, and we came in and we were red in the face, and he made us lay down on the floor to cool down. And we thought he was joking. Yeah, come on. We're going to lay down on the kitchen floor. So yeah, even in spirit, when he comes through, he's a smart aleck to this day. And my mom is loving and supportive and bossy. She'll like say, you need to talk to your brother. You need to reach out to your sister. And
your mom on the other side now.
Yes, my mom. Mm-hmm. My mom was has demanded that I talk to my siblings to keep the connection. And
yeah, mothers know best, right?
Yes, they do. And
you would know because
I don't disobey my mom. And she is such a beautiful, loving yellow light that fills my entire room when I'm sleeping. Nice. She wakes me up sometimes, and I'm like, I don't want to open my eyes because my eyes are tired. And she's like, open your eyes. I want you to see. And I really feel like she gets joy. Like, I got the energy to do this, and I'm going to give her a show. And you're going to do it whether or not you want to, young lady.
Some things don't change, right? Yeah.
And I've had like spirits jump up and down other people's. They're so excited to be heard, to be able to have that information come through to their loved one, especially when they see the person suffering through dread or, missing and feeling like they're never going to be happy because that flesh person is not with them, and they just want so bad for the person that is still living and missing and grieving them to know that they're with them and that they love them and that they're happy and they're well and they're free of their body, they're free of the pain, they're free of the suffering, and they get to be right all the time.
They get to harass their loved ones who are aware of them.
And my mom sends me hummingbirds. I mean, anytime I have like an issue, the hummingbird shows up in a very strange way.
Wow.
Like right in my face or up on the window and stays at the window flapping its wings. And one day it tapped on the window, like, really, you need to get this.
Pay attention.
You're not alone. Everything's going to be all right. That's the message that I got from that. So death does not have to be a terrible experience, although that's easy for me to say. But
yeah, it's hard. It's the ones who get left behind that suffer the most.
Mm-hmm.
When the one who passes over is the one who's free and happy and in their new life and
trying to be of service to you.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know it.
Yeah, I know.
So.
I mean, my aunt came to me and her personality and her sense of humor showed up.
She's always around.
Oh my gosh,
she's delightful.
Claire and Eleanor are buddies now. So they're always talking.
She's adopted me as a niece.
Yeah.
So, but I hope that you guys feel a little bit more comfort about death, and
it's part of life. And it's change, and we all get a turn.
Yeah. And so here's another thing before you go. Tell your family what kind of signs you're going to leave. What are you going to do?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because my dad was like, I'm not going to give you dimes and pennies. I'm going to give you quarters. And then he goes, and then I'm going to give you books. And he has not let me down. I was really surprised how many different ways he can have a book come into my life by being gifted to me from different people. And in my entire life, maybe I got, no, now I'm counting because I'm so literal all the time. In my entire life, I was probably given 3 books. And in the year after his passing, I was given 5 physical books and then all these digital books by my hand. I'm walking with my phone and all of a sudden I look at my screen and it's opened Audible and it's on a book and it's the same topic that I was wondering about. Wow. So dad still being a dad. I'll bet your dad is still being a dad as well.
Oh, he showed up in some dreams, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Amazing ways.
Best way to is to not medicate yourself. No drugs, no alcohol, and don't listen to sounds unless it's like orange noise, something that is just a calm sound with no spikes. And then before you go to sleep,
frequencies.
Before you go to sleep, you can find it on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and just type orange noise. It's a great sound for meditation and for clearing the mind of any distractions that may happen in the outside of your house or in the house. And then say out loud, I want to remember my dreams, because you're talking to your the autonomic area of the brain and giving it instructions. And it's like, okay, we'll remember the dream. And then you say out loud to whomever in spirit you would like to come visit you in your dream, please come visit me in my dream tonight. And then if you don't remember your dream the next day, you need to forgive yourself, say it's okay. And then do it every night and just keep doing that. And you'll get better and better and better at it. I have someone that I'm coaching in mediumship, and he texted me, he goes, I remembered my dream. So it took him a while. It took him a few weeks to have that happen. And he goes, and I knew what it meant. Or I knew what it was all about. So that's great as well.
Wonderful.
So I hope you enjoyed learning about what it's like for us.
Oh, I have so much more to say about that topic because it's such a major part of life.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed talking to you about this, and it was just the tip of the iceberg for me. And we welcome any comments. And
speaking of death, what does the death card mean? Because a lot of people get scared about it. And I picked the death card. That even surprised us. So,
wow.
That was meant to happen today.
Okie dokie.
Because even though I've been doing this so long, I still have doubts every once in a while. So that was meant to happen. I was meant to pick the right card. I got chills. You got chills?
I'm just a little bit stunned right now. Wow. Yeah. See, that happens to me a lot too when I'm doing readings. I'll picture card in my mind and I pull it.
So back to what it means. The death card is not a bad thing if you get it.
So basically, the way that Claire pulled it like that shows that what we're saying, we are carrying messages from the other side, from beyond reason. And we are bringing messages in about what is so pertinent to all of us here, because we're all in the same boat together. So hopefully we've helped you with the subject and the topic of death, and that it really is change.
Yeah, and feel free to leave any stories that you have on someone that has passed, or if you have questions about a loved one, be sure to leave it in the comments, and we will see you next week on Beyond Reason, where we talk about the in-between and the far beyond, and where we are even surprised by our own abilities.
It's real, that's for sure.
See you next week.
Thank you. See ya.